Welcome to Film School Friday. I'm Corey.
I'm Bill.
And together,
we are Captain Planet. Just kidding. We're the In Focus podcast.
We also host the In Focus podcast. Film School Friday is our special weekly episode where we try to pass along all of our knowledge, wisdom, experience, expertise, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to take from us.
Try to pass that on to you.
Yeah.
So this week, Bill, I want to talk a little bit about content creation and specifically corporate content. And you think about like what is involved in creating corporate type content, maybe for small business, medium business, probably even more specifically large corporate business where you'll have a lot of different eyes, a lot of different potential needs. We'd love your perspective on what it takes to create that type of content.
So corporate content is very, I'll say right out of the gate, very lucrative. And there's plenty of it out there. It's one of those areas you can get into. I don't want to use the word easy ever in relation to production, but it's easier to find your way into corporate content a lot of times as a freelancer, just because there's so much of it being created and it's always needed. And these are companies, like you said, small businesses, medium businesses. Larger corporations typically have their own in-house situation, so that can be out of the question unless you work for them like I do. And it's just, that's a great way to get your foot in the door and start getting freelance gigs and continue to get those gigs. Because a lot of times when you do work with these clients that are companies, number one, if they're a bigger company, not like a startup, they've got a little bit of money to spend on the video content that they want created. And so right off the bat, you're likely to get possibly a nicer paycheck for a corporate gig than you would maybe, let's say, an independent artist for a music video. The money might be a little scarce. Corporations have no problem writing you a check a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so that type of work can be very lucrative. The only, I guess the downside of it is that it's not the sexiest work in the world. It's not the most creative work in the world. It can be, depending on who the corporate client is, but by and large, a lot of this is talking head stuff. It's interviews with like executives and clients and salespeople. A lot of times it's B-roll of a process or an office. So stuff can be a little dry, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, when you hear the term corporate content, what all types of videos or content would that entail? Because like you said, I know that you do that full time throughout the week. So like, I know you're talking about like training videos, like communication cascade, like what all types of content should a creator keep in mind when they're thinking about pitching something like that?
So all of those things are really involved in corporate content. I look at it two ways. There's internal and there's external corporate content. Internal is stuff that only the employees of that particular business are going to be viewing. So a lot of times that's training, HR information. Sometimes it's fun videos that highlight the employees that are only interesting to the employees. And then there's external content, which is client facing, which is the stuff you'll see from companies that's out on social media, that's out on the website for the company. Sometimes these companies will send videos as part of a package to clients they have as a promotional tool or as like a sales tool of some sort. So there's a lot of different varieties of corporate content, and there's internal, external, they all have their own subcategories of different types of videos. So, you can get into anything from, like, one of the things I do is web portal tutorials, which, again, not particularly the most sexy job in the world.
Yeah. Absolutely thrilling.
But it's, a lot of click here, type this, and screen capture type stuff. But then you get into the other stuff where, like, I did a roundtable conversation with like 5 physicians, and we built an entire set in the ballroom of a hotel with like backdrops and china balls hanging down, and I want to say we had 6 cameras set up around this table, and then on sliders and that sort of thing. So it was a much more involved production that was more traditional to your more exciting shoots where you're building a set and lighting and doing that sort of thing. So it's everything in between with corporate content. It's just if you're looking for something that's really creatively stimulating, that's not always what you're going to get in that world.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. Now, when you think about taking on a new client for corporate content, whether it's internal or external, are there things that should be kept in mind when you're creating content for a client like that versus other things like maybe music videos or even short form narratives, things like that?
So the one kind of hack or pro tip with working with corporate clients is that a lot of the people that engage you to do this type of work are not creative people. They're business people. And generally speaking, they're very thrilled to get any video content, no matter the quality sometimes. So that doesn't mean you go in there and you give them some slop. You go in there and give them the best thing they've ever seen before. So then they'll hire you again and again and again. You know, that's another thing about corporate content is if you give them good stuff, they'll come back to you. Because then you become that person that they have on call. They've got your card. You know, if we need a video in the future, we're going to reach out to this guy because he did such a great job. And so when you approach these folks, a lot of times the bar is pretty low. They really don't know what to expect. It can be easier to sell them on a base level concept or even something that's a little more creative and involved. And like I said earlier, a lot of times they have the money to spend on it and they're willing to spend that money. And so it can be very lucrative.
I like money.
Yeah. We all like money. So, yeah, go out there and hustle for some corporate content. Businesses are looking for it.
Awesome. That's great. Any other final little tidbits or anything, little pro tips when it comes to corporate content?
Own a teleprompter.
Ooh, good one.
You are a hot commodity if you own a teleprompter in the corporate world. Because there's a lot of teleprompter work, typically.
Yeah, and similar to your comment around, oftentimes these clients are not creative people.
Mm-hmm.
They're also people that don't typically spend a lot of time in front of cameras delivering a message.
This is also true.
So there's this level of comfort that typically you don't ease into right away a lot of times, and that teleprompter makes that a lot easier, right?
Yeah, and adding to that, you got to be pretty comfortable as a director to direct some of these folks. You know, these are business type people, executives, things like that, who you're right are not comfortable in front of the camera, generally speaking. And your job as a director then is to make them feel comfortable. So, word of advice: don't approach a corporate shoot with a lack of confidence, because you're going to make the client nervous, whoever the subject is, and they're already nervous. So, you're there to comfort them. That's a big part of that gig.
Yep. Like with many things, confidence is key.
It is.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Bill, great insight this week. Appreciate it as always. You might be the smartest corporate content creator that I know.
I've done it enough at this point.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. For our listeners, make sure you check us out on Instagram at InFocusPod or online at InFocusPodcast.com. And if you like what you heard today, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating. It would help us out a ton. And until next time,
buy a teleprompter and feed your crew.
Yeah.